KPM.
Perfection is unachievable. It is futile to chase after perfection when such thing doesn't even exist. Striving for perfection is a registration for a lifelong disappointment due to the inevitable failures. So, let's all focus on progress rather than perfection, especially when you are striving for a certain goal. During the Recovery Movement Control Order, RMCO, or even when we were in quarantine, we have seen many posts circulating online regarding the things that we should do to fulfill our time wisely. These posts have been telling us to start learning a new language, to play an instrument, to bake, to exercise. The list is endless. These posts are usually very passive-aggressive, so we feel slightly guilty for not doing the things that they have suggested. For students like myself, we had to adapt to online learning and virtual classes, on top of trying to finish that avalanche of homework and assignments to do. So this constant telling of what we should do, and also the tasks that we've delayed, could feel too overwhelming to bear. On social media, we also have seen people posting their success and achievements online, like how many hours of revision they've done, how many cakes they've baked, how many music they've played. We feel quite incompetent for not achieving as much. For me, personally, I feel apprehensive because I feel like I'm not being good enough. There's this girl on Instagram which I follow who says that she's been studying for at least 9 hours a day, a minimum of 9 hours a day. Whereas for me, I've only been studying for a maximum of 2 hours a day, despite having the same 24 hours as her. This feeling of being incompetent, this feeling of not being good enough and not being productive enough isn't really a foreign feeling to many of us during quarantine, right? So, being the good friend that I am here to remind you that you need to give yourself a break. This RMCO, this MCO, the quarantine isn't some productivity contest. You are surviving and fighting a worldwide pandemic. You should give yourself a break. Pressuring yourself to do more and more and more each day could result in a burnout, which will then cause you to have a mental breakdown. This constant and repetitive cycle of grinding, which is then followed by crying and breaking down, is unhealthy to your mental health. All of this is caused by perfection. When you strive for perfection, one thing you should know is that you are setting a ridiculously high standard for yourself to follow, which deep down inside you know you will never ever be. When you strive for perfection rather than progress, you are paralyzed by this fear of failing, which will then cause you to stay stagnant at the place where you start, which means you are never moving anywhere. Progress, on the other hand, allows you to move forward, because even if you're moving at your slowest rate, even if you're moving at your slowest pace, you're still making movement. You're still making progress towards your goal. And this is exactly what we need to be successful. One thing that you have to bear in mind is perfectionism creates procrastination. Shocking, right? When you are striving for perfection, it stalls any progress because you want to achieve something so perfect even in very first attempt. So this causes you to never even try, and you will never start because you are terrified of failing on your very first attempt. So, how do we become productive during quarantine? How do we stay successful and become the productive person that we want to be without comparing ourselves to the perfection of others? Well, number one thing you have to do is you have to acknowledge your lack of productivity. You have to know that you're not doing enough. Maybe the only thing that you did today is you've stayed in bed and watched a couple of movies, or maybe you've eaten too much good food and you haven't been exercising. Or maybe you've been studying for only 20 minutes a day, despite having 24 hours a day to yourself. You have to know that these breaks, this constant indulgence of good food is exactly what your body needs and your mental health needs to stay happy. So yes, have a break. And then, after acknowledging your lack of productivity, you have to comfort yourself and tell yourself that it's fine to not be doing so much. You deserve that break because you are surviving from a pandemic. And then, you have to push that restart button. Plan your days ahead with tiny little baby steps that will guarantee success. Instead of focusing on trying to have too much or maybe focusing on progress, you should have little baby steps that will allow you to move forward. Focusing on perfection will only stall any form of progress. And then you have to bounce back from it. Planning your days and follow these little steps that you have planned. Maybe your goal is to finish one book this month. You have to read at least 2 pages a day and then maybe 5 pages the next day. And then on the third day, you'll only read 2 pages and it's fine. Because why? You're still making progress. And that is exactly what we need to become successful. Remember, progress is the key to being successful and to be productive. When you strive for perfection, it creates nothing but procrastination. That's it for me today, the Master Procrastinator.
Didik TV KPM. Didik TV KPM.